We are what? We are who? We are what? Vibrant. We are who? 50 plus. Hi, welcome to Gray Lives on the Rise. I am your host, Professor Jamila Franklin, and we are coming to you from Oyende Enterprises, being sponsored by Jamila Sense, which is our product line of aromatherapy products that helps heal the mind, body, and soul. And we are bringing to you Alamaj's rebirthing program, as well as Jamila Sense and a host of wonderful programs that will help heal your body, heal your soul, and heal your mind. 50 plus people, we are here to stay. Gray Lives on the Rise. We are what? We are who? We are vibrant, and we are here to stay. Join us for our wonderful episodes. Thank you, and continue to look for our episodes weekly, being brought to you again from Oyende Enterprises and Jamila Sense. See you soon. Greetings, everyone. Welcome again to Gray Lives on the Rise. And I am here today with the wonderful Nicola, and she's going to talk about still in the game, how to make yourself heard over 50. Excellent topic for us, right? I am Professor Jamila Franklin. I'm the founder and the creator of Gray Lives on the Rise. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of information about us, and then we're going to jump in to talk with Nicola. And we both have on our Gray Lives on the Rise t-shirt. Nicola has on hers, and she can stand up and show you hers. Yeah, great. So anyway, Gray Lives on the Rise started about 2 years ago when I was walking. I'm very, very active in terms of activity. So I was walking, and all of a sudden this download came into my consciousness, and it basically stated, there's nothing for people in your age group, 50 plus. And I thought about it. I'm still walking. I said, yeah, that's true, except Medicare, which deals with people who are taking medications, which is fine. I don't take any, but for people who are taking medication. So that wasn't really relevant to me. Medicare, doesn't really speak to me. And then AARP, which is the Association for Retired Persons. And I'm not retired. And most of my friends are very active. So I said, yeah, we need to have something that speaks to people who are 50 plus, because for some reason in all countries, when you're over 50, then all of a sudden you become a non-person. People tend not to listen to you. They tend to dismiss you. They think that you're over the hill. Now, these are your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whomever. You gave them life, and now all of a sudden you are irrelevant. So I said, well, what I need to do, and this information was just flooding in my consciousness, I need to come up with something that speaks to people who are 50 plus. And then as I was thinking about it, I said, okay, what can I call it? The Gray Lives Matter. I said, no, that's overused. Gray Lives on the Rise came into my consciousness. And I said, wow, I really like that. And so then I said, okay, we have to relanguage how we refer to ourselves. We're not over the hill. We're not elderly. We're not seniors, none of that. So I said, okay, what should we say in terms of ourselves? I said, we are vibrant, we are alive, we're golden, we're mature. Bingo. I like that, right? I can relate to that. And then I said, okay, we have to brand this, because it's not about a fleeting notion. It's a movement. How do you brand a movement? You then have merchandise, like what Nicola has on, and like me, we have pillows, we have cosmetic bags, we have mugs. The first thing you wake up in the morning, you can drink from your mug. We have all types of paraphernalia. And so I said, yeah, that's great. And then the last thing that came was a podcast. I said, okay, what I wanted to do is promote people who are 50 plus, who have businesses, products, and we can exchange with each other and let people know. But people won't buy from you or seek you out for your services if they don't know that you exist? So I came up with the podcast. So voila, the whole thing came together in that moment. So Great Lives on the Rise. You want to get to us? The website is on my other website. I have an array of services and products. Oyinde Enterprises, OYIND as in dog, E like an elephant, Enterprises, ENTERPRISES.com, Oyinde Enterprises. And so on that website, you will see Great Lives on the Rise listed along with other services that I provide. And then on Great Lives on the Rise, you click on it and you see everything about us, everything. So right now I'm going to do a small little infomercial about the company that's underwriting it. And that's one of my companies, Jamila Scents, which is my aromatherapy company, all natural, holistic, no fillers, no chemicals, none of that. And my number one seller for stress is Peace Be Still. This little product here, it's amazing. What it does is only has lavender, lemongrass, and geranium in it. And you see how clear it is? You just put 3 drops in. And you rub in. The carrier oil is grapeseed. You rub your hands together. Oh my goodness. You're floating. It gets rid of stress, anxiety, PTSD, hyperactivity within children, sinus congestion. And I live in Atlanta, and we're taping this now in April. And there's a lot of pollen in the air in Atlanta. It gets rid of that sinus congestion, right? So you breathe it in, and you just float off into the ethers, and you put the rest on your arms. It's a natural lubricant. It is amazing. So go to my website, oyindeenterprises.com, and you will find Great Lives on the Rise and Jamila Scents. Okay, so now that I've given the introduction, and I am also a certified aromatherapist, a certified Reiki master, a certified metaphysician, college professor of psychology. I've had my own clinical practice for over 30 years in mental health. So, and now I'm a global podcaster because I have people who are from around the world who've been guests on my show from Australia, Canada, Serbia, the Netherlands, you name it. I mean, in England. So we just have people from around the world because the issues here in this country resonate. People in all the countries have felt that they have been relegated to the place of unimportance once they become insignificance once they become 50. So it's not just an issue here in the States. It's one that is global. So having said that, I'm going to give you the introduction and the wonderful information and bio about Nicola. Okay. Nicola Richardson is a leadership and communication expert who knows firsthand the power of difficult conversations, especially when it comes to staying visible and valued after 50. And that's so important. I was just talking about that, right? Because people tend to dismiss you when you become 50. It's interesting. 49, you're relevant. One day later, 50, you disappear. Interesting. As the founder of the People Mentor, she helps small business owners and leaders develop the skills and confidence to handle tough workplace conversations without stress or fear. With over 33 years of business and management experience, Nicola has led high-stakes projects, navigated corporate politics, and challenged biases, especially when she had to remind her senior leadership that she wasn't ready to be sidelined just because of age. That's so important. You have to speak up for yourself, and you have to advocate for yourself when people are trying to dismiss you. Now she teaches professionals how to assert themselves, manage conflict, and lead with confidence using her Compass conversation model. Through coaching, speaking, and training, she helps people break through barriers, have fearless conversations, and claim their space, no matter their age. When she's not coaching, Nicola enjoys travel, learning, and proving that experience, wisdom, and leadership don't have an expiration date. I love that. I love that. I love it. I love it. So welcome, Nicola. How are you? And she's joining us from England, by the way. How are you?
Oh, it's lovely to be with you, Jamila. I'm so pleased to be here. I'm good, thank you. It's a nice sunny Sunday afternoon in the UK. The sun is shining, bit of a cold wind, but I'm so grateful to see the sun, and aren't we all?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in Atlanta and it's overcast here. So, but we've had some really good days. I love days that are overcast, days that are sunny, days. I love it all. I love it all.
Yeah,
So,
it's it's good to
yeah,
get out there, and
yeah.
I've been for a walk, so I'm all raring to go.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk about, Nicola, in terms of how you became this wonderful person to empower people to stand in, to honor their space and their age at 50 and above. What led you to this place of empowerment from your childhood all the way up? Did you experience things where you felt that you were powerless and then you had to change that energy? Or have you always been empowered?
There have been moments, I think we all go through moments where we feel like we don't have the power to speak up. But as a child, I was very lucky. I was brought up in a small tea room and I worked at the front of the house, looking after the customers. From a very early age, I would go and help out at the age of
Mm,
7 onwards. And my father ran the front of the house and he taught me to have a voice and to deal with difficult customers,
mm,
deal with colleagues who I was working with, because he was really good at bringing the young in to work with them and building a great team. And so was my mum as well in the back. She did all the cooking. She did the glorious cakes where people came from afar to buy them and put them in their freezer. And I was very confident at that stage. And then I got married and ended up in a relationship that wasn't ideal, and I lost my voice.
oh,
Went to work. I was working corporately, and I really struggled with my voice, and I was very timid and very quiet. And when I look back to my
mm,
childhood, that was the opposite, complete opposite of what I'd been like. And
mm, mhm.
so I then got divorced, and after I got divorced, somebody said to me, "What's happened to you? You found your voice again." And I realized that my first marriage had been holding me down.
Mm,
And it's subconsciously, you don't even realize it
mm,
sometimes.
mhm.
So that was that. And then I um, had my career, and I got to uh, just over 54, and I had a lot of stress going on with my father, who was very ill in hospital, and I knew he hadn't got much longer left to live. And also
Oh,
work, I was operationally leading, and it was really stressful. And the two worlds collided. I had a manager who was the least unsympathetic. You know,
yeah.
she really
Mm,
didn't do sympathy, didn't do empathy. Um, Called me into a meeting, told me how stressed I was, but no sort of empathy and how are we going to move this forward. And I
mm.
went out, carried on working, and then my dad died, and it was the two worlds colliding, and I had a heart attack.
Oh,
And
oh.
I realized it was because of the stress of everything. And I was 54 at this age.
Mm,
So I went back to work after a few months, and my manager had decided to move me off my operational lead without discussing it. And that gave me extra stress and
Wow.
tension because I loved my operational job, and it was simply because the two worlds collided. And then from there I got sidelined into lots of different things, and because I asked for partial retirement, so we were very lucky, we could take partial retirement but still keep working part time. So I decided that was the way to go to help me cope with the financial loss, and so
Mm,
I took the partial retirement, and as soon as I did that, I was classed as I was just meandering along, and I wasn't really interested in doing the big projects and getting involved in the deep stuff. And that was
mm,
far from me because I wanted to still make the most of my career, even though it was part time. And so I
mm,
really had to fight to get my voice heard. And I can remember talking to a very senior civil service servant who was running over all our department. And I had to clearly tell him that I was fed up of being sidelined because nobody
mhm,
was listening. And it
mm,
was incredibly difficult to get the message across. But he suddenly realised that I still was motivated and keen and wanted to do my best. And so
right.
he stepped in, but I had to have that conversation. And that's where I think my business began.
Wow. I am so, uh, I commend you. I'm so impressed how you were able to just move through the kind of indifference and lack of empathy during a time when you needed it the most, particularly with your manager when your father transitioned. And that's really interesting because you would think because your original manager was a female, that the empathy would have been there, you know, but sometimes women emulate the masculine energy
They
when
do.
they're in corporate America, corporate England, wherever they are in corporations, and they tend to try to impress the male supervisors with their lack of compassion. And it's just really unfortunate that that happened. But on the other hand, it strengthened you because the person has said that originally that you had gained your voice back after your divorce. And then you could see in management what was going on again in terms of you losing your voice. You left the relationship with your husband, and then you were in a corporate position, and you were losing your voice, and you were beginning to see
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's funny. You have to stand back and you have to reflect sometimes what's
Yeah.
going on here. And we're all so busy, aren't we, that we tend to not do enough of that.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. And actually, in the last couple of years, one of the things that's really helped me has been around positive intelligence.
Mm,
And I love the teachings in that, and that mindfulness that's
yes.
really in that runs through the veins of it, and also the love yourself for what you are. We're so
Yes.
easy to criticize ourselves, aren't we? And
Yes.
this happens in difficult conversations as well. People avoid them because they're worried about reactions, they're worried about what they're going to say wrong,
Yeah.
and sometimes we just have to go for it.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. People, and also because you can't take your words back, people tend to be a little attentive sometimes. So sometimes they're too uh, too empowered. Empowered is not the right word, but sometimes they can be a little subservient and not compassionate when they are expressing themselves. Because there's a middle ground that you can be empowered and express yourself with compassion, as opposed to being empowered and just running over people like a bulldozer, because you want to be heard. But yeah, wow. So you worked in this corporation and working there, but what was going on other than the manager, the female manager who wasn't supportive, and then this male manager who came around who was more supportive than she. And so how long were you in that position? Are you still working there, or did you just
No, no.
transition
So what
out?
happened was, after my heart attack and after all these things were going on in 2016, I set my own business up, but still
Mm,
kept my part-time job. Still
mm,
had a little bit of fear of walking away from it. So I kept my part-time job going and my business working part-time.
mm,
And then came, they moved me into what we can call continuous improvement work. So leading
mhm,
teams, looking at the processes, looking at how the departments were functioning and to
mm,
make them smoother, more efficient. And so I did that and I enjoyed it, although it was through what we now term in the UK EU exit. And it was very stressful then as well, because you'd go from one day to the next in this volatile environment where there was uncertainty all the time and you were
mm,
really struggling to keep on top of it. But actually, I'd been very lucky. I'd been given some training around coping with that. Didn't get it
mhm.
at the time. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes we get training until we actually use it, we don't understand how it actually works. But thank goodness
Right.
I had that training because
Mm-hmm.
it did help me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was my, they talk about VUCA and uncertainty and the stress it gives you in the workplace. Well, it was exactly that. And it actually gave me great lessons, but it was very stressful. So in 2021, I decided I'd had enough. I had had the previous year, I'd got High Performer of the Year. I'd landed a big project on time, unlike a lot of them. And I'm just like, I'm leaving now. This is the time now to go on a
Mm-hmm.
high. And that's what I
Yeah.
did. So I've now been doing my business full time since 2021.
Yeah. And I think it's really, really wonderful what you said. You left on a high point. As opposed to when you were at your lowest peak. And so you had the energy and the momentum to then really go full speed ahead into your own business. That's wonderful. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
So
And
you're
I got
now,
to say,
uh-huh,
sorry, carry on. I was going to say, I have to say that I was very lucky that the team I had around me helped me get that High Performer of the Year. So, we can't forget the people that support us and work with
yeah,
us. When you've got a good team, you know it.
yes, that's very true. That is very true. So now, since 2021, you have been a solopreneur. Basically,
Yeah.
that's what we call it. And tell me what goes on with you, with your clients, and if you have a particular story that you would like to share, a success story.
Yeah. So generally, I mentor people, leaders or business owners around holding difficult conversations. They're avoiding over 70% tend to avoid difficult conversations. So
Mhm,
I mentor them in how to have that conversation. And it usually starts by doing a personality assessment, a behavioral assessment, looking at where they're sitting and who they're having problems with and where they're sitting to work out what's going on, why the communication isn't going right. And
mhm,
then we'll practice some scenarios. We'll look at how they need to say things. I give them a structure because let's be honest, we don't know what we don't know. So we need
right,
practical answers
right.
as well as the theory. So I'm very much about giving practical templates, helping them structure those conversations so that it feels easy and it's something they can use time and time again. So they
Mhm,
don't have to keep coming back to me. Because my goal is to get them flying so that they don't need to be with me anymore.
mhm,
And interestingly, I did this work with a business partner who was having enormous problems with his partner, and they really weren't communicating. And he was demoralized. He felt undervalued. He felt that his business partner couldn't see his contribution to the business and he was really struggling. And the conversations he was having with his business partner was very harsh on him, or that's how it
yeah,
felt to him. So we
yeah,
did his behavioural assessment, and then we did around what was going on and what we're seeing. We spent 3 sessions together,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the third session, his wife came running in and sat next to him and said, "Oh, you don't, I just can't tell you how much difference you've made to his confidence and the fact that he's now having these conversations and he's dealing with his business partner." So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was brilliant and I was really, really happy. And then it's been a year since I spoke to him and we had a catch up this week. And he actually said to me, I told my business partner what I had done. I told him all about my assessment and how we were clashing and why. And I realized actually my value to the business was helping the team gel, bringing that team together and making them do the work we needed. And he was so impressed because he said he could see the difference. And that to me was lovely to hear that in the catch up call.
Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful, especially for you to get a progress report a year later in terms of the energy and the lessons being sustained. Because
Mm,
sometimes people come to us as coaches or therapists for a one-shot deal. They would do it for a period of time and then they drop off, and then they tend to say, oh, it wasn't that effective because it's still not bringing me results. Well, you're not working it. You're not doing what the person told you to do. It's the therapist, counselor, coach, or whomever the person may be. So for him to give you feedback, constant feedback a year later, I know that must have been really gratifying.
it really was. I mean, his wife coming in was wonderful, but just knowing a year later, having actually caught up with him, and it was to discuss whether he needed any more coaching sessions, and he generated that discussion, and I actually said to him, "You don't need them. There's no point you working with me. You don't need them."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that was good to hear because you know you've succeeded then when you've given them the tools to help them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then come back. That's really
Yeah,
wonderful. That's really wonderful.
yeah.
So, how would you walk a person through a session? I'm your client. I'm coming to you, and I'm coming to you because I am having this uncomfortable relationship with my supervisor, and I'm not sure how to approach the person because the person isn't as open as I would like for her to be, and I don't desire to jeopardize my position at this company with this person.
So the first thing I would do with you is this behavioural assessment. I use DISC. Um, and so I use that to see where you're sitting, what type of behavioural assessment, what it's showing me. So, for example, I'm an I high influence. So I'm very extroverted, etc. And I've recently been working with a client who's very dominant and has clashes with her boss. And when we worked it out, she was very dominant and she was a go-getter and she just got on with it. And she didn't necessarily listen to her team and their views and incorporate them. And he was very much a team player. So he sat the opposite end of her and he was
Yeah.
really struggling with her approach. So the first thing we'd do is we'd sit down, we'd look at what your communication style was, we'd look at what your strengths were, what your motivators were, and what stressed you out as well. And then we'd use that information to then map out where we thought, say, your supervisor sat. So, so that's quite easy to do, really. And then we'd look at what communication style you needed with them to help them get on side. So that's the initial stage. Then we talk about the actual conversation that you need. What is it covering? And it would include about, being curious. It's really important that as people, that as that person who's talking to somebody else, that we are curious about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, I had a case exactly like this one that you've just mentioned. Somebody who wasn't getting on with their supervisor,
Mm-hmm.
and she did a DISC personality test, and she we went through it in detail. We worked out where we thought her boss was, but then she went in and she actually said, "Look, I'd like you to know this is what I've done. So I'd like to know a bit more about you. Where do you think you sit on here?" And she took some of my charts in with her and she said, "I'm trying to understand to form a better relationship, a working relationship. And very few people can reject it when you say that you're trying to create a better working relationship." And it
Mhm.
really also can apply personally as well. When you're trying to be curious and find out about people, and when
Yeah,
you're trying to build that relationship, the more curious you are, and the more you try and understand where a person's coming from, the more likely you're going to have success.
that's true. That's true. And asking the probing questions, which may be difficult, like what, and that's what we're talking about, may be difficult, and people tend to shy away from them. But those are like the elephant in the middle of the room. Everyone sees and everyone knows that you have to deal with a particular topic, but they keep dancing around the pink elephant, which is obvious right there, and they're stumbling over it, the elephant, because
Exactly.
they choose not to have a conversation. And elephant is going to remain there until you really have these difficult discussions with people. And I love the fact that you have an assessment tool that you use before the session. It shows people where they are in terms of their level of communication. So you can build upon that, build a plan to take them to the next level. I really like that, Nicola. So do
Yeah.
you have more women or men in your practice?
It's mainly women, mainly women. Women seem to be more open to looking at what's going on and seem to have. And I'm not tarring men because I think men do it in their own way, but women are more likely to come and be mentored around it. That's what I'm finding. I have had the odd man, um, but it's that masculine energy, and I know from your other podcast, having listened to some of those, you talk about this a lot, and it's true. There is a different type of energy, and you have to realize that. And
Mhm.
I find that when I get the men, they've usually got a little bit of that feminine energy in them that they tap into as well, and they want to
Oh,
show the
okay,
empathy.
okay, okay, okay. And I think that that's really, really important. I'm interested to see where we're going with this in terms of AI, which is more computer generated and less of you. You can even tell AI about a difficult conversation that you've had or are anticipating, and AI interacts with you as if it's a human being. So when we're having clients remain uh, mindful and in the moment, and then they're interacting less with actual flesh and blood human beings, interacting more with machinery. How do you think that AI will affect communication, connectedness in the future?
I think it's a really difficult one. So
Mm,
when you talk about AI, I mean, for example, I have put into, because I have some online courses as well. I have put an AI bot. I've actually made my own AI bot. I can't believe I've done this, because I thought if the answer is to use it as a tool, not as the main thing. So I've put a
yeah,
tool in
yeah.
where I've programmed it with all the components that I think make a good difficult conversation plan. And
Mm-hmm,
so my clients can go in, they can put their scenario, and it will give them a plan of how they need to take that conversation. But it won't help them have
mm-hmm.
the conversation. And
Well, that's
I
good.
think, yeah, and I think so with AI, I do have concerns that we may go
Yeah, I
too
do too.
far. But I do think at the moment, the way AI is programmed, it is quite compassionate when it comes back with answers. And
Mhm.
I actually saw somebody was using it as a counselor, which I was like, that seems a bit, but we're moving forward. I'm
Yeah.
kind of looking forward to it in a way, as long as we use it as a tool and we don't let it
Mm.
take over our lives.
Yeah, that's a concern because I know people who are using AI in all facets of their lives, to turn on the lights, to turn off the lights, to play music. to give them conversation rather than interacting with an actual human being. And what you're saying now is really important because when people are having these difficult conversations, they need to rely more on their gut and their intuition and less on AI, Siri and Alexa. But because the machine will give you its interpretation of the box, but it's not going to give you all of the empathy and compassion that a human being would. So just curious, I'm watching this AI thing because I think it's becoming really prevalent. I think that people are really happy to use it. It's making us lazy in so many ways. We're not
Absolutely.
forced to communicate because you're texting all the time or sending Facebook messages. So people are not communicating on a heart-to-heart level, and they're not being mindful. So I think that's a good answer regarding AI.
And I think you made an interesting point there about the empathy and the compassion. And if people are having conversations with AI, what they need to realize is they're missing out on that personal body language, the
Yes,
tone.
yes,
That's all really important. And if we take, isn't it? I think it's something like, and I'm not very good with remembering statistics, but it's something like how only what you actually say is 10% of the conversation, and it's everything else that goes on are the key components. So I always tell my people that I'm mentoring, you need to make sure you check in with what your body language is like, your
yes,
eye contact,
yes,
the tone as well. So important.
yes, yes. It's really, really important. And I think what you said earlier makes a lot of sense. When you're communicating primarily with AI or any other form of technology, as opposed to the live person in front of you, you're missing out on the nuances. And even virtual is like what we're doing now is far better than AI because you're seeing if the person is connecting with you, leaning in or moving backwards or distracted with something in the environment. So, and you can make note of that because that blocks communication. And people don't realize that, but it does if you're not in the moment and you're distracted looking around or having side conversations with people, you're not present. So yeah, human connection is still very, very relevant, very, very important.
Even even virtually, because I can remember being on a call and luckily I was like really watching the person because like you say, we can be so distracted. And I said something to her of an idea and
Mm,
I thought she'd really like it. The tiniest movement in her eyes, just I could just see a little flinch. I thought she didn't like that. So you've really got to tap in, even virtually,
yeah,
into how people are responding. And you can't,
yeah,
I mean, I think virtually holding conversations can be quite draining because you really got to zone in. Excuse
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You do, you do. And it's more challenging because they're in front of you virtually, but they're not in front of you physically, where you can connect with the handshake or something. So communication, and you're teaching people how to stay in their power and how to assert themselves in all relationships and not give up their power. Co-workers, friends, or whomever, never to give up uh, your power.
Mm.
You were born great. So, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Do,
it's
do you
really
have,
about sorry,
go ahead, I'm sorry. Go
it's
ahead.
I'm freezing a little bit, so let's hope this is okay. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
you're fine. Mm-hmm.
okay. So it's about collaboration. When you go into any work meeting, any personal meeting, it's about working together to get the right outcome. And I think it's really
Yes,
important
yes,
that you make a person feel safe in the first place. And so, what's really important
yes,
is to acknowledge their worth, to acknowledge that you want their input, that you value it. And when you start doing that, people, you can see them
Yeah.
actually relax. So,
Yeah.
so it's really important. And I
Yeah.
think
That's true.
I like David Rock's SCARF model. So it's status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. I'm a hot one for fairness. I have to say it's one of my strong values, and I do believe we need to be fair to each other. So I think sometimes that doesn't always happen, and when that doesn't happen, my hackles go up, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what happens, particularly in the business world, compassion is seen as a negative. It's not embraced. So the more people become robotic, more like AI, not expressing emotions, that's rewarded. And that's the masculine energy.
Yeah,
And so we have to be aware of that because it's very masculine. It's not balanced. And when we have a more balanced approach with our clients, they can feel you and they can relate to you. And they're like, okay, even though she may haven't experienced exactly what I've experienced, she hears me from here as well as from here. So my caution in what you said so perfectly, Nicole, is for people not to be so connected to AI, chat GPT, and all those things. Look at them if they can give you a hint as how to communicate with someone in case you're stuck. But to rely on the 100%, um, that's going to cost you because you're relying on
yeah,
the machine to tell you how you should feel. It can give you some suggestions and all of that, but ultimately, like what you're doing, Nicole, if it's just so wonderful, you have to empower yourself and speak from your own words, and you can get some supplemental information from AI. But when you're in
yeah,
those difficult
absolutely.
situations, to rely on your own strengths. So,
Y-
do you have any in-person workshops?
Apologies, you've cut out.
Okay, I was asking, how do you see your clients? Do you see them virtually, in
Yes,
person?
I see them virtually.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, virtually generally. I do the odd workshop now and then, and we'll do those. Again, they can be online or they can
Yeah,
be face to face, but generally
yeah,
my clients are one to one because they're the ones I love to, I like doing workshops, but I do love the one to one approach because you can make such a
yeah,
difference. So
yeah,
that's what I do. Um,
yeah.
and I've got this dream, so I need to get on with this dream. If I say it here, maybe I'll get it in place because I want to do a local like conference event here, have some speakers and do about difficult conversations as well and management and leadership. Because I think in
Oh,
Lincolnshire, um, they're like a few, it feels like they're in 10 years back. They're not actually, and they are
mm,
vastly growing and they're getting a lot of food manufacturing industries come in. But what I would love to do is make that difference by having that big event locally because I feel it's an untapped area and I really need to get on with that.
yeah. Oh, I think that's, yeah, because what you're doing is you're tapping into an area that has not been explored, and but there's a need for it to be explored. So that's wonderful. And it's
Yeah,
really growth opportunities for you too. And you're giving people the permission and the nod, particularly the ones that are over 50, that you can have these difficult conversations without things falling apart. And that's the reason why I think people run away from them because they're like, if I have this difficult conversation in my personal relationship with my employer, the words and things that you can say. She will point out to you the nuances, the body language cues that you may be missing. And that's what she is. Nicole, let's do this uh, before we get to the end. We have few more minutes. I need for people to have your contact information. How can they get in touch with you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn under Nicola Richardson, the People Mentor, and I share regularly a weekly newsletter full of tips and help. So well worth having a look on LinkedIn. And you can also get me at my website, thepeoplementor.co.uk. And I also have a podcast, the People Mentor podcast, which you can find me on all the big podcast things like Spotify, like you are on. So yeah, you can find me in any of those. That's me.
Well, what I'm going to do is have you repeat all of that again and spell it out for people. So, because some people might say, well, okay, I heard her, but I need her to spell it out to make sure that I have the out for people slowly so that they can record the information.
Okay. So it's Nicola, Nicola Richardson, Richardson, the People Mentor, Mentor on LinkedIn. And on my website, it's the People Mentor, mentor.co.uk. Okay?
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm able to have find out more from you, like for
Yes.
15 minutes or whatever on Canwilly. So you do have discovery calls. Okay. So for those
Yep,
of
I
you
do
who
have a
like to get in
discovery
touch with
call.
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And
And all of
I
that.
even have a, sorry, I'm struggling because it's really cutting out. I don't,
Okay, you're doing fine.
okay.
You're
So
doing
yeah,
fine.
so I also do a 3 tips session for free, 30 minutes. They come with their problem. I'll give them
Oh,
3 tips to help them.
oh, okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So then
So,
once they have the discovery call and go on your wonderful website, listen to your podcast and all of that. Most of your clients virtually or in person?
yeah, it will be virtually that I will meet with them.
Okay. Okay. So those of you who are in America, Canada, Australia, Serbia, the Netherlands, England, wherever you are, you can still have a wonderful session with I was calling it Nicola, with Nicola about
Ha-
you can still have sessions with people that you normally would not have been able to do, especially transatlantic via Zoom or Teams. You can still meet with them and have the same benefits as if you're meeting in person. So that's wonderful. I love that.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything
And
coming up? Go ahead.
so I was just going to say, and what happens between my sessions is they get little bite-sized videos and things. So if whatever we've discussed, if I
Oh,
feel there's a need, so at the minute I'm seeing there's a lot of need around dealing with difficult people, like negative people,
yeah, yeah.
micromanagers, etc. They get little videos to help them with that.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. It's wonderful. Because so and the trainings that it's the most important area that what do you think that we should really focus on who are 50 plus? Uh,
Um,
that's a big question, but
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah,
Honestly, you'd think internet would be good everywhere, wouldn't you?
yeah, no, I've had some glitches too. I truly understand. I was just saying, no, I do. I understand because I've had them. I was saying that, what do you think is the area of communication that we as a global community should focus on, especially the people who are 50 plus? What do you see the greatest need in terms of communication, basically?
I think it's around realizing that you've still got a voice and
Mm,
that you still need to be heard and that you can make a
yes.
difference in this world. So I think it's about finding the courage to open up and say what your views and what your thoughts are, and working to make the world a better place, in all honesty. And I think there's so much strife and upheaval and change, and we've all got experience and knowledge and insights that can really make a difference to how this world is going. So we need to speak up, definitely.
I love that. I agree 100%. I think that people tend to shy away, especially if they're feeling bullied, and they may desire to be able to speak up or to feel empowered, and they just don't know how. And that's why I think talking to someone like Nicola is so important, because if you know that you're facing a difficult situation and you don't have the tools to address that situation, that's when she would be extremely helpful, because she's an expert in that area and she can tell you the way in which you can approach it. Because what happens sometimes when people feel powerless, disenfranchised, they go from 0 to 100. They become explosive because they've suppressed that anger or the fear for so long, and they end up doing something that's very drastic. When there's a middle ground, and Nicola will help you achieve that middle position, as opposed to being very docile or being very explosive. That's her area. Please listen to her Spotify, go to her website, go to her Facebook page, all of the different social media that she has given you to check in, so that you can then talk to her and receive the support that you may need to address those challenging situations. You don't have to suffer in silence when you're seeing a situation in which you're being uh, ostracized, or a situation where you're being bullied, or a situation where someone is gaslighting you, or a situation where someone is ignoring you or being abusive. There is a middle ground, and she's walked that road. So I encourage you very strongly to to contact her, to get in touch with her, to have the first introductory call, and in between you can listen to her podcast, and you can also look at her social media and get a better understanding about the wonderful work that she does. Very impressive. So Nicola,
Thank you.
in the last few minutes, what would you like to leave our listening audience with?
So actually, what I see is that one of my top blogs on my website is managing emotions. So I would say to anybody who's really struggling with their emotions when they're going to have a difficult conversation is to prepare before the
Yeah.
conversation and plan what you want to achieve out of that conversation, and think about your opening line to create safety. But most of all, breathe deeply into your stomach several times and concentrate, say, on rubbing your fingers together, rubbing your hands and feeling the sensations just for a minute or two. And you'll start to feel your emotions dissipate and you'll feel more in control. And people really struggle with their emotions. The other thing is it's okay to feel emotional. We have
Yes.
this thing where we say it's not good, but actually, I spent many years in my corporate life where I would often cry from frustration, from anger, and I still managed to go up the grades. And I think it's just about realizing it's how you recover afterwards. And as long as
Yeah.
you show that you're capable, it should not be held against you. It's okay to be vulnerable.
I think that's really, really important because in the age of mechanization in which AI is having such a powerful influence, people are becoming more robotic and less human and less emotional. They stuff it and they tend to create addictive personalities through food, through work, through sex, through exercise. They tend to overindulge in those areas because they're suppressing or repressing what they truly feel. So I am so pleased that we had you, Nicola. I was calling her Nicola in the beginning. I like both pronunciations, Nicola and Nicola. I like both.
I don't
So
mind. I'm quite open to be called all sorts of things. So,
yeah. But I
so
would love for you to listen to her podcast. And I'm going to be a guest on one of her podcasts too. So listen to her podcast, go to her
yeah,
Facebook page, all of the social media, her LinkedIn page, and all of those social media handles that she is giving you, and make an appointment to meet with her very soon, very soon. Thank you, Nicola. I really appreciate it. And for everyone who's listening, don't forget to like this page on our YouTube channel, Gray Lives on the Rise, and Gray is spelled Gray, Gray Lives on the Rise. Like and subscribe. And we so appreciate you. We so appreciate you. Our numbers and our views are increasing astronomically. So we appreciate you. Appreciate you. And until next time, beloveds, be well, take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time. Okay? All right, then. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Gray Lives on the Rise, being brought to you by Jamila Sense, which is the product line of Oyende Enterprises. Jamila Sense is a 100% natural aromatherapy line that heals the mind, body, and soul. This episode of Gray Lives on the Rise was intended to uplift you, to inspire you, and to motivate you. Please tell all of your friends, family members, and anyone you know who's 50 plus, who's living a vibrant life and interested in doing more and enjoying life even to its fullest. So thank you, and please subscribe, like, and comment on this video and all our videos. Thank you, and until next time, until our next podcast, namaste and be well.